This is good? Okay. Nice. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, thanks for joining us, a few people that we have left at the end of the Accelerate conference. My name is Adam Henry. I'm from InsideSales.com. I'm a customer success manager there, and we have one of our clients with us from Cradlepoint. Today we're going to be discussing, we call it driving results across the funnel and end-to-end sales processes. So Cradlepoint actually has a pretty cool and unique story, actually, from most of our clients. They purchased a product which was called C9, which Inside Sales acquired last year, now known as HD Forecast. So they purchased it prior to us acquiring that company. And they were also using Inside Sales at the same time. So we actually don't have too many clients that kind of share that same experience. So that's really why we want to bring them in and just kind of hear their experience today. So the people we have participating with us is Joseph Scofield. He's really the applications manager, kind of in charge of all their software there. We also have Kevin Christopherson. He's the senior business development manager. And Devon Wilson, who I believe reports to Kevin, as also another business development manager. So we really appreciate having them with us today. Do you guys want to actually do just a kind of a quick introduction maybe about yourselves and how you started at Cradlepoint?
Yeah. So Joe Scofield started at Cradlepoint about 1.5 years ago. At the time, I came in as a sales operations analyst. So eyeballs deep in the data, trying to pull out information that can help drive business decisions. Obviously, Salesforce being what it is can only tell you so much from a historic basis unless you're on top of things, creating your own snapshots and things like that. On top of that, obviously, products like the Inside Sales Dialer and things like that were certainly within our purview of information that we were trying to delve into. Beyond that, I moved into information systems, senior Salesforce administrator there, and am now in charge of all application evaluations for our entire ecosystem surrounding sales, customer support, and engineering.
Okay. I don't know if I have the list like that, but I started a couple years with Cradlepoint and started as their first BDR is kind of our title. Everybody has their different titles for SDR, and kind of started with the group and said, let's take a look at this and see if we can figure it out. At the time, I think we had about 30, maybe close to 40 inside sales. I guess account executives is a good similar term. We term ours ISR, inside sales rep. But and then it's been phenomenal. It's been a great ride. Started with them trying to really work and understand that position, and then we've grown that spot, the BDR team, up to about 18. Devon was right there with me as soon as right after I came in. He came in as well, and we've grown the account executive team, or in our case the ISR team, up to about 75. So it's been phenomenal. It's been a great ride.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, like Kevin said, I was the second BDR, so we both kind of started that department more or less. And now we have 18 kind of covering the U.S. regionally through territories and then also verticals, like a retail, a public sector, a transportation, to give you an example. And but it's funny because we used to have half the country, and we're finding deals all over, and now it's gotten a lot more granular. But yeah, it's been great. It's been real great to kind of see the evolution of the business development and coming here and talking with you folks. Out in this world here, it's really nice to kind of share ideas because everyone's kind of learning together. I notice. Kevin brought that up, and then because you came to this last year, I believe, right? So I started to kind of put my ear out there and notice the same thing, that everyone's kind of moving together in this inside sales org and business development, or SDR org. So it's been great.
Okay, so we just want to kind of give you a quick introduction about Cradlepoint. We actually have a link that you can kind of go to their About page and check that out. But what we want to do is jump into a quick little video. It'll kind of just give you an idea of what they offer.
Every day, IT and network decision makers are being asked to do more. More applications, more reliability, more speed, more analytics and security. Why? Because customers, employees, and even you expect more. So how do you quickly extend, complement, and augment your existing network at a fraction of the cost with less complexity? It's simple. You wire less with software-defined wireless and wired WAN solutions from Cradlepoint. Software-defined technology is quickly transforming the traditional private network approach because it can do more, and it can do it faster than ever with instant overlay network services. It's the linchpin for the Internet of Things, an enabler for business at the edge, a software-defined platform for innovation and speed to market, and an incubator for new products and services. In fact, business strategies today hinge on how quickly and easily their wide area network is deployed and managed in their existing network. Software-defined wireless is here, and you need to wire less to compete. Cradlepoint's software-defined wireless and wired WAN solutions help traditional networks gain new levels of security, reliability, performance, and flexibility. That's why enterprises are not just turning to wireless. They're turning to Cradlepoint to help scale and complement their existing network. 75% of the top retailers, nearly 50% of Fortune 100 companies, thousands of small and mid-sized businesses, they all depend on Cradlepoint network solutions to enable their business. Cradlepoint is the solution of choice for mission-critical wireless. The top 25 most populated cities in the U.S. trust Cradlepoint for first responder, mass transit, and smart city networks. Gain the flexibility, speed, and security you need to take your enterprise to new and innovative places. Places you can only go with Cradlepoint. Do more for your enterprise. Wire less with Cradlepoint, the leader in software-defined wireless and wired WAN solutions.
So obviously, great commercial. Marketing department does an awesome job. The whole point of showing this is to give you guys context of why the information that we garner from these tools and systems is important. The breadth and width of our product lines, as well as the customers we serve, makes it very difficult at times to be able to stitch this information together and present it to senior leadership in a cohesive and understandable manner.
Thanks. So I think one of the first questions we want to go over with you guys is related to our native platform, the dialer itself, Kevin. So and that was what specific problems or issues does the inside sales dialer solve for you and your team?
Right. I'll go ahead and answer a little bit of that, and then have Devon add to that too. First of all, real quick, can I find out how many of us have a dialer solution or something like that right now? Do you mind if I ask that? Or okay. So when we first went into this, we didn't, and so moving over to InsideSales.com was a huge difference. And really, what it did in one word is it gave us visibility. And so some of the things that it solved, if you notice up here, the local presence is something that we took advantage of, enable us to create specific campaigns. And really the biggest problem, I think everybody else in here too, is you didn't know what was going on without that type of tool. And so what I want to do is just kind of show you a couple of the things that this allowed us to do in a visual format, just because I think it helps. So again, I don't think these are anything amazing or groundbreaking, but when you don't have that visibility, then you really don't know what's going on. So this is just a quick example. Again, being integrated with Salesforce, that's the tool that we use, is critical. And a lot of times I don't look at a lot of tools unless they do integrate. So this is just one example, again, of being able to measure and take a look at where our guys were. So this is just looking at their calls daily. Is that right? Yeah, go to the next one if you would. Here's just, we were able to then turn around and create a metric where we were able to look at 3-minute calls. We found out that we started to see success when calls were reaching over, conversations were going over 3 minutes. And so to be able to actually track that and look at that, we didn't have that ability without that tool. So here's just an example. This one's really important. This one was a critical one because we had call results. We had lead statuses. And actually the last time that we came here, I realized that our lead statuses were a mixture of lead progression and transactional. And that was something that opened my eyes because I realized, geez, there's a difference between a lead status and a call result. And so just having the ability to be able to see that stuff tells you a lot about your guys. And so these are just some examples of some of the things that it solved for us that you can see in a very visible way. So do you have anything to add to that?
I think, is mine the next slide there?
Oh no!
Yeah, next
no.
one is
So, well, just to add to that, so again, I don't know if you folks are using the power dialer at all, but in the Seekless, for me, so my team is primarily cold call outbounding, and kind of like Kevin said, you don't know what you have until it's gone or lack thereof. So we were taking a real scattergun approach. Some lead lists would be loaded into Salesforce, some would be on spreadsheets, some are account executives, or in our case, ISRs, would give them. And so, it was just scattergun. Where are you dialing? How are you dialing? What's your method of follow-up? Well, some guys use sticky notes. Well, some guys, write a little note, email themselves. Some guy, it was kind of a cluster. It was a mess. So the power dialer and the Seekless are great. For me, I can create custom Seekless. We'll talk about it a little bit later, I believe, in some of the other slides, but that was the big eye opener for me and the big game changer for me, to not only give the guys an organized way of attacking the leads and a follow-up process, but a way for me to load campaigns and dial into a specific vertical campaign and then analyze after 5-6 weeks, whatever it is, how many correct contacts did we pull out of that. Right, and actually have some real numbers in one place instead of on sticky notes or emails or in your pocket. So again, yeah, power dialer was a big game changer for us.
One other thing I'll add real quick is that it really does. You're going to see this as Joe talks about it. This really is the top of the funnel when we're talking about how HD forecast falls into this. Knowing these type of metrics, we're at the very top of it. So we're figuring out what gets us into those lower metrics when we're actually looking at some of the pipeline that's been qualified. And so, yeah.
I just curious, how did it go with trying to, you mentioned you guys were having these different methods of trying to track things. How did you get them, how long did it take, or, what did you do to try to get everyone to be, I guess, trust and fall in line with kind of what you put together?
Sure. Yeah, it's still a challenge. I have a couple of reps that still don't want to use the Seekless. They think their methods work better, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at? When you show them numbers and you show them results from some of I have a handful of reps that are very successful that use the Seekless, and then I have some reps that are equally successful that don't use the Seekless. But if I can show them a percentage of correct contacts and maybe a ratio of how many closed opportunities that leads to, and obviously translating to a commission check. But to answer the other part of your question, I mean, it was a couple of months before it was fully adopted, I guess I would say. And the cool thing about the Seekless is you can customize and tailor them. Kind of jumping ahead to our last slide a little bit, but you can tweak and tailor. I don't know if you've played with it or if you have the power dial or the Seekless, but you can really customize and tailor it to each rep, so it gives them a little more vested interest, and it feels like it's a personal thing for them. And so they can kind of tailor it to their style is one thing I know works really well. So,
thanks. Next thing we want to jump into is straight to Joe with HD Forecast. Same kind of thing. Were they trying to solve when they actually were seeking out and looking, actually when it was called C9 at that time?
Yeah, so, the big things, you see here, the big stuff is manual intervention, right? So everybody's used to, the tool doesn't natively handle it, export it to Excel, do some wizardry on the back end, make it look pretty, and send it to the executives, right? The amount of hours that took was immense. Trying to stitch information from our PBX coming in for inbound, outbound calls, average handle times, call durations, correct contacts, all of those types of things, and then put that against, through correlation, our other sales metrics in terms of average selling price, close rates, opportunity generation from leads, all of those types of things. One of the biggest pieces that we saw was a ton of effort being set week to week in forecasting. And so our reps would go through, they would do their spreadsheet of a forecast. They would email that to an executive assistant. She would spend hours stitching all of that together, making it presentable, and then roll that up to the managerial staff to get their input before it went to the executive staff. So time savings was in the neighborhood of 30 hours combined per week that was being sent on just getting accurate forecasting. Go ahead. Some of the other pieces that we got out of this is your conversion metrics. So one of the tools was called Active Insights. At least it was when we bought it. I'm not sure if that's
Still Active Insights. Yep.
With that, you can start pulling down additional metrics in terms of accessing the actual data warehouse that's being populated. So there's a SQL query interface that you can enter things into, create your own data lookups and data tables, and then populate those into widgets that can be displayed on dashboards for your executive team. So the two that we have up here, stage conversion, actually shows the percent of movement when you go, like, let's say qualified in Q4 of 2015, right? When we entered the quarter and they were in a qualified stage, 11% of those were in a closed won stage by the end of the quarter, right? So this allows management to go through and say, empirically, if you go through and you look at your bottom line for your averages and say, what is the predictability of my pipeline, total pipe by stage? How much of that revenue can I expect at the end of it? Right? So when we start talking about number of dials being handled by the ISRs or by the BDR team to feed that funnel, we now know which levers to hit our numbers by the end of the quarter. The other piece, actually go back one, sorry.
Yep.
The other one is the stage funnel comparison. So this is a quarter over quarter comparison in the amount of movement between the stages. So again, we can see if people are actually following the sales process as defined, or if they're letting something hang in a stage and then jumping it 3 stages before because they haven't been keeping up on their opportunities, things like that. Okay. This view is actually a view of our forecast. So you can see the reps can go in and put their judgment against it. The managers can go in and put their judgment against it, and any alterations against what's pre-populated, because it's always going to pull your commit number. But if you feel rather bullish about something that's further down in the pipeline and you want to pull that in, or you're a little hesitant about something that's in your commit stage right now and you want to back that out, you can do all of that by selecting the opportunities to include or exclude. Any changes, as I said, are highlighted by those blue dots. If the dot's facing up, it means you made an edit. If the dot's facing down, it's your manager made an edit. And so the higher up it goes, the different views you get. This view is viewing it as our CEO, so he gets everything rolled up to him. And then he can go in and look at different comments that were made or different suggestions by the different reps or managers. Okay.
So I think this one kind of fades into the next question for Kevin, which is just visibility or Devon, visibility on down to the rep level. What type of visibility were you able to get there?
Yeah, thanks. We touched on it earlier. Was there a question?
There was a question. No, we gotta go.
There you go.
When you first put everybody in stage, how calibrated did you think the reps and the managers were? And what did you really see when you actually started plugging the data in?
That one was just call result, right?
Was there much of it?
It's because of the rigor around the manual process. There was a lot of focus on it, so they were fairly accurate. Right. So for us, the major realization was being able to slice and dice the data in different ways because we have access to it from a historic trending change analysis perspective. So it's just easier, and the time savings in all of those manual hours, consolidating that data and making it presentable for the executive team was a major issue.
Kind of tag on that, I'm interested, did you find or discover like specific behaviors or trainings that had to be corrected as a result of, meaning, like I remember having a team where I used to track like their average date, like by rep, and the days in cycle and all stuff. So when they forecasted something that, as an example, let's say that it was in only in there for 40 days, and their average time to close the deal was 125 days. You know, it was an alert to me of like, okay, what's going on? Let's dig into this. Let's figure out what's going on. But I also found a lot of patterns, in how that, whether they were the sandbaggers or the happy years or just those that were just really not, they were misaligned with where the customer was at. They filled in all the check boxes, but they really weren't that far on the product. The customer was definitely not where they were.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine that this would be a great way to surface some of the, and I'm just curious, did you guys identify things that could help the managers to train or coach on?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see in a future slide here, some of the big pieces that they have are push risk, activity risk, things like that, right? So when you click on one of those cells, it'll actually pull up all of the opportunities that are related to that number of risk. And you can actually see the number of days in stage. You can see the number of days open, things like that, right? So if somebody's telling me, yeah, this particular opportunity is going to close, and it's only been open for 20 days, and a deal of this size historically doesn't close for 130, the likelihood that that's going to close is pretty low, right? And so again, when the manager sees that on their forecast, they can now go in and either exclude or discount that particular revenue line to make sure that it's being accounted for on their best judgment.
So just real quick, this is just a quick example of when you have reps, when you have the dialer, when you have those that visibility, you can look at those metrics, and like I mentioned before, it just gives you an idea of what the top of the funnel is going to look like. How many correct contacts, how many appointments completed, how many proof of concepts are you going to need in order to start getting into those opportunities and see that qualified status. Some of the stuff that Joe was talking about. So, but the next one is question 4. So now I think.
So if I close the loop, I really like how you started with, you were able to predict how much you should have in your pipeline based on your targets, right?
Yep.
So then, is that how then you communicated to the BDR teams in terms of their targets? Are your targets based on revenue targets or more around appointments or POCs? Like how does that need translate to what you guys do?
So why don't you cover what your guys' piece is on that?
So the question is, how are we
You
targeting?
need to have $1 million in the pipeline because your target is 500,000. Let's say they have a 50%
Correct.
close rate on your pipeline stage opportunities. So how does that, if you know you have a 50% close rate on your pipeline opportunities, then how do you use that information to set targets for you guys to uncover?
Yeah. So the idea being, the POCs, right, translate a certain percentage of those will translate into closed won opportunities, right? So when you start looking at that, you go backwards basically to say, okay, how many of these closed won opportunities had an ASP of X, right? So then you get your average ASP on those POCs. Now we know how many phone calls, dials, contacts, right, are going to translate into those POCs, translate into the opportunities, translate into close one business.
So have you already designed, have you gotten to that level of insight where you know your POC success rates or based by if you remember Dan Troy's speech
Yep.
around, hey, we figure out this industry is where we sell the most. Are you guys there yet?
We're working on it. So the best thing I can tell you is information is a double-edged sword.
Right.
Just because you have it doesn't mean you understand it. Just because you understand it doesn't mean you can communicate it, right? So for us, it's the more data we have, the better. So the longer we run these analytics, the more eyes we have on it, the more conversations it sparks, the better collective understanding we have. There is no one true answer. There is no one true way to go about it. So it's kind of a duck on that question, but we're working on it, and it will be a work in progress as we move forward.
You're working with the BDR team to experiment maybe to see where you guys are getting the result.
Well, one thing we do have is, because we had the dialer previously, we've got about a year of intel on that side, like you can see here. So we do have some information. Now it's a matter of combining that with what he was talking about. So we're in the process of that. I don't know.
And another thing, too, I think we were asking, too, more towards the top of the funnel, making the connection between the BDR to a pipeline management perspective. So a proof of concept, we target as a BDR team through marketing, we target distributed enterprises. So we do target a number of locations. So if I have 5 POCs, proof of concepts, we've demoed a product for 5 companies that only have 2 stores apiece, it's not going to get us our number. We have a threshold. So roughly $10,000 to $20,000 deal is what those proof of concepts would be worth. So then we can develop, okay, how many reps do we need to produce? How many proof of concepts that are valued at XYZ dollar amount that will then translate to a pipeline of XYZ for the inside sales team. But yes, that is something that's still kind of being defined and massaged through our team and our evolution of our team and marketing to target better. So
Yeah, I mean, well, so the next one was still kind of around the dialer, right? And it looks like, I mean, this one and the next slide is really just more, I mean, kind of what we wanted, right, was just what visibility has it given you as far as your reps' performance, and, yeah, what have you been seeing there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, this one's great. I love this one. So, you know, with Salesforce, we have kind of like these guys were talking about with the dashboards, plugging in the numbers that we now have that are real. And we can count on. So, you know, in the world of cold calling and prospecting, you know, it's all about what, when, and where, and who, and how. And if anyone ever gets the book and figures it out, it'll be the bestseller, right? And people keep trying to write that book. But so, you know, this is pretty self-explanatory, but success rate by rep per day per hour. And see, based on call result right here, how many correct contacts we're getting at a certain time of day. And so then we can better strategically, you know, plan for, and so based on, you know, we have the whole U.S. we've covered. We got a guy that comes in at 6 a.m. He's going to make sure he hits those East Coast folks by 8, right? So just kind of organizing our day and then analyzing what's working, what's not, based on the call result. It's great. That's all I had on that one. And then segueing into... was the question on the power dialer? Yep. The seek list? Yeah. So again, this is my favorite piece. It would definitely be the way you can kind of drill down into the seek list through the power dialer. So we work through marketing with targeted campaigns. This one here happens to be a healthcare for Q1 2016. It shows you, as you can see, you know, how many dials they're putting in and where those leads, how they're progressing through the lead statuses. I won't go into the definitions of all the lead statuses, but as you can imagine, you have net new leads, and then, hey, I'm working on a lead, and hey, I've qualified a lead, and then, oh, this is bad data, right? So this really gives us a good link, a communication to our marketing department, which is, again, something we're working on, you know, strengthening all the time. So we can come back to them and say, hey, you gave us 5,000 leads. Marketing, of course, is saying they're all golden. Go get them, right? And we can come back and say, well, yeah, you know, 4 of them were golden, and then you know, so it's a great handshake communication to tie those leads and that activity back to marketing per campaign.
Well, and can I just ask, like, what's interesting to me about that, and you're talking about your conversations across groups, is making me think of Stephen M. Covey's presentation this morning, where he's like, how do you build trust? And it seems like using this type of information as a tool for transparency. I mean, is that something that you think maybe, you know, how does it help your relationship with
Absolutely, it takes the guessing out of it. I mean, and he touched on that this morning. The numbers don't lie. And if you have a system in place, you load the leads, we'll attack the leads and give you the feedback, and then we can strengthen that relationship that way. Absolutely, I would agree.
And I would add to that, it's consistency and rigor, right? So data is meaningless if you're not being rigorous about how you're entering it. And have those processes in place. Another keystone in terms of the BDRs and the sales teams working hand in hand with marketing is we've kind of created a hybrid role as well called sales marketing coordinator. And their job is to literally be the bridge, be that gap filler, to go back and forth and kind of represent both groups to each other. And that's been very successful as well.
Good point. Question over there?
Who does that person report to?
Marketing director.
Yeah, so it's kind of got a dotted line, right? So he reports to the marketing director, but then they have a dotted line to the VP of inside sales, and so they're kind of answerable to both, but holistically responsible to marketing.
I think this next one kind of ties into kind of what we're talking about with the push and kind of how are you getting visibility as far as HD forecast. How is that letting you see, and better manage the opportunities and so forth?
Yeah, so one of the questions was around, that whole accountability piece. How do you get buy-in? How do you prove usefulness? What information can you glean from something like HD forecasts? And so you can see up here, push risks. A number of times the close date has been pushed out. So again, my level of confidence goes down when I see a deal has been open for 480 days and has been pushed 9 times. Right. So as a manager, I'm going to question the validity of that deal closing in this quarter. Right. Same thing happens. Stale. Again, days since last touched. Expired. If a close date has passed, I'm going to start asking, opportunity management people, where are we at? What are we doing with this? To again keep on top of that rigor piece. Our data is only as good as the people entering it. Beyond that, then it goes again to that whole activity piece. So,
and then I think this is kind of just looking into our forecast here. This one's showing, right, the activity risk that we were just talking about.
Yeah, names have been redacted for obvious reasons. But yeah, on that you can see, again, those risk categories. So as a supervisor, I could drill into each one of those within HD pipeline, so C9 pipeline when we had it. You drill into that. Below that, there's a section that populates that shows all of the opportunities that make up that number, right? And that can be done on any one of these cells. So if you click total pipeline, it's going to show all the opportunities that reflect into that total pipeline number. But in particular, against those risk categories, it will give you the actual numbers. So not only how many opportunities have this status, but specifically on this opportunity, it was pushed 9 times, things like that.
Okay, and then the next thing go ahead.
So when you guys implemented this, did you have, because I can see it going 2 ways. And the first way, by the way, it's you have no exclusivity on, I'll say, how do I put this correctly? Like I've trust a lot of smaller companies, and they don't have the structure or understanding of how to really manage projects, which they should, and so they make kind of quick decisions, maybe not always informed with all the data, so that there's a lot of jumping around. But what I would be interested to know is that did you guys have a cadence that went along with rolling out HD forecast that was reviewing, because I imagine you discovered a whole bunch of things, and so how do you
Yeah, no, absolutely. So our first one was to engage with the sales leadership team, so all of the management staff for the inside sales group. And it was a review of our current data, how we wanted to go about rolling it out to the reps, deciding how we wanted them to be able to view it, and then to set the expectation with the management staff that this, at least for the first 6 months, was not a bludgeon. This was a tool to make us better, right? A lot of times, again, something like this can have a lot of fear built up with it when you go to roll it out to the sales reps, because again, you lose that anonymity, right? You can't hide anymore in your sales practices. But there are actually a lot of reps who use this on a daily basis to keep themselves up to date and to assist them in like what the power dialer and the click to call allows them to do, tell them the next thing to do. Right. So if I have an opportunity in there, it's in a certain stage, I know it's supposed to close, and I haven't touched it in the last 30 days, I probably better know about that. Right. Because my boss is sure heck going to ask me on Friday. Right. Once we had the management staff aligned with how we wanted to roll this out, we actually brought in a trainer from C9, and they helped train the sales staff on its usage, on what they could gain from the system, and then obviously how to use it, and follow the rollout from there. From that point forward, it's been a cleansing process. So every quarter gets better. We have less and less opportunities falling into those risk categories. Our forecasts are getting more accurate, and they're beginning to align with our predictive analysis of the historic trending and change analysis charts that I'll show later.
Really quick, you were asking about the cadence of implementing it. Is that right? Or the cadence of using it? Without disrupting, or?
Yeah, because a lot of times, like if people discover something else in a smaller company, and I'm saying I've been the one that's done this too, which is that you see that data point and you want to and so you create this almost instability because as the data's coming in, you're trying to knock out some of the problems, and that kind of creates that, the thing that all the reps really hate, which is the constant change.
Well, one thing I will mention, I'm sure you have a comment. One thing I will mention is that a lot of the actions that the management team, the account executive, or in our case, an ISR managers were doing, a lot of those things they were currently doing, but they were doing it, like Joe mentioned before, they were doing it through Excel sheets. They were doing a lot of that stuff. So honestly, my impression when they saw this, people were like, oh, this is going to save so much time, and the reps as well. And so my opinion from what I saw, now because I'm with the BDR team, I'm the beginning of the sales funnel, so I'm not using this tool as much. But what I did see and witness is a lot of people were like, bring that to us, it'll help us. And I think that outweighed the other part that you're talking about. I don't know what you'd say about that.
Well, and as I mentioned earlier, we had this kind of 6-month hold window. We're like, we're going to work on making our data better. We're going to work on cleaning it up before we push this to C-level executives or VP-level executives. And during that period of time, we're not making knee-jerk reactions, right? We're collecting the data because, again, out of the gate, it doesn't mean anything, right? We need time for it to build up before we can actually analyze, understand the pattern, and then begin to identify the issues so we can create a solution. So making sure that we built in that understanding with the team that, look, there's not going to be anything actionable out of this for at least 6 months. That was really key in making this a successful launch.
So one of the main problems I think we've all heard quite a bit being in the sales industry and just at this conference in general is, how do you get visibility into the sales funnel as a whole? Like a lot of times you can see a lot of stuff at the top, but then you can't see stuff at the bottom. That's why, obviously, our purchase of C9 seems really strategic, right? So we kind of just want to talk, to using both of those tools as a whole. What greater visibility do you now have, across the whole funnel?
Just real quick, I'll just mention on the dialer side because it's this, in my opinion, it's the short answer, and I'll let Joe do the longer one on the C9 side. But really, again, it just goes back to having a tool that integrated into Salesforce well enough that we were able to create. We picked a method and went with it, obviously. There's a lot of different ways you can go. So picking one and sticking to it. And then creating a dashboard to be able to give visibility to the VPs and the senior VPs. That's a huge thing. When you can run a campaign and they can see on the outskirts the penetration of that campaign and the success and what we're doing. Not just here's the campaign and how many sales we had, but what is the activity going on? When you can show that in a dashboard, that's a real lot of power. So the visibility to the seniors was on our part, I think, was one of the greatest things that really helped us out because it showed that what we were doing, it showed the work, honestly. So on the forecasting side, that's a different story.
So I'll echo some of what Kevin's saying. Visibility is key, right? If you don't have visibility to your business, you are making decisions on the fly, which makes things somewhat of a coin toss on whether or not you're going to get lucky today or not, right? The biggest piece that we found, and one of the reasons I targeted C9 in particular when I was looking for a solution, is the ability to look at those trending analysis, histograms, change analysis charts, things like that. Again, being able to analyze at a glance information as it's changing over time allows the business to be able to learn from its past quickly. Without spending undue time mining that data, stitching it together.
And I think that was kind of our next segment that you went into perfectly there, Joe, was speaking to, why did you guys originally search out C9 when it was C9 and, now HD Forecast? What initially prompted you to investigate it and, really purchase that product?
Yeah, so pretty much like I was saying, the major pieces for us is, we still don't have a true BI platform, right? So being able to look at information across systems is still somewhat of a manual intervention piece. But when you're looking at Salesforce, it doesn't have a native piece that allows you to go in and look at your snapshots over time. You have to export those. You have to keep them in multiple tabs, and then you're trying to run cross-tab correlation, which is always entertaining. And if your macro breaks, good luck trying to figure out where. So again, what I was looking for when I was evaluating C9 was the ability to run those historic analytics, access to the data warehouse so that, because we have no idea what question sales leadership is going to ask next, right? So we needed the ability to be able to go in and create ad hoc reporting, put that into a dashboard and allow them to view it as they go forward. And then the other piece was ease of pipeline management and ease of forecasts.
I'm just remembering during our planning of this, I remember you saying that at one point, was it Jenny was running something like 70 spreadsheets and somehow compiling them all together to try to piece this, right?
Yeah, so our inside sales team, minus the BDRs, is 70, 75 reps. And so the executive assistant in charge of that group was literally having to compile all of their manual spreadsheets weekly, roll them up to managers, roll the managers up to the directors, and roll the directors up to the VPs. And that's just on the inside side of it, right? Then you've got the field teams, you've got solution engineer forecasts for closed trials and all of those types of things. So again, having a tool that does that for her, she was spending about 10 hours a week just trying to get that stuff stitched together.
She's your biggest fan.
Yeah, I think
For something else, it takes 10 hours. So.
Yeah. We found her work. It's all right. It's all right.
So the next thing we wanted to cover, and I'm not sure if this is the right slide. I think it is.
Yeah, this will work.
Was we wanted to kind of just discuss, kind of to your point, where you're talking about rolling up to the executives. What benefits are there for the executive team with the platform?
So this is an example of one of the histograms, right? So you can look through here, and again, you can see up at the top your view. You can change the date range. You can look at this from this day since last week, since start of quarter, quarter to date, year over year, all sorts of fun things, right? But this shows the different, and for this particular one, it's in commit stage. Right, and this shows all of the changes that occurred during that. And again, if I click on any one of these bars, it will actually launch to show the opportunities rather that make that up. And then in that line, it actually gives a description of what happened. So, one or moved out. Obviously, they changed the date. Did they change that out a year? Did they push it out a month, a quarter? Where did that deal go? So again, it gives sales leadership the opportunity to go in and really understand the business, where things are moving. I remember one time just before we implemented this, we had almost $2 million disappear from the pipeline in a week and a half, and we had no idea where it went. So that was hours and hours and hours of combing through back forecasts to figure out what opportunities got moved out, and then going to each of those individual reps and asking what happened. Right. So something like this, same type of thing happened 2 months after we launched this. Within 14 hours, we knew exactly what was going on, who was involved with it, and we're able to go out, reach out to those customers on an executive level and pull those deals back in. Right.
Awesome, and I know we're getting short on time here, but kind of the last thing that we wanted to look at was really from each of you, Kevin, Joe, and Devon, was just kind of your favorite pieces of the platform.
So that's
right here.
We can come back to that slide if we have time.
Oh, okay. So skip that one then, I guess.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You guys go first.
Go ahead, Devon, if you want.
I've been talking too much.
You'd been talking too much, Joe. No. Mine would definitely have to be, obviously I'm more front end, right, and he's more back end. So mine is, if you couldn't figure it out, is definitely the seek lists, the ability to create custom seek lists for my reps. They love it. I have one rep who has 5 seek lists. She's a public sector, so different verticals, behave differently, and we have calling patterns for those sub verticals within public sector based on buying timeframes, buying cycles. So a custom seek list for each, right? And some reps will want, their top accounts that they feel strongly about. Some of them just want, hey, give me the big mass of leads, and I'll just dial them. So the ability to change that for each rep. It softens the blow of saying, hey, you're going to, dial 70 more dials today. Are you ready? I need you to do that every day the rest of the year. Because, the cold calling, those folks, it can be a burnout. So anything to give an edge or anything to add, a more tailor fit, personalized touch to it is actually proven to be quite helpful. So.
And honestly, seek list was mine too. He kind of took that one. So I picked a second one, and the call result was a great feature for us. Again, it took us quite a while to get it implemented, but separating the lead status, a lead progression versus a call result. So if all you guys have already done that and we're behind you, then good job, because it took us it's helped a lot. So that would be the other ways to be able to segment that.
I like to be able to look at stuff from a historic perspective. Again, I don't know if you guys got that or not. So that's, for me, the biggest piece, right, is being able to go in, find those patterns in the data, and be able to call those out quickly, effectively, and allow sales leadership to rally around the data to be able to go out and design a solution that makes sense. The other pieces, again, I'll highlight the widgets that you can create from your own data in a data warehouse from all of those snapshots. That conversion widget allows us to go and update our sales process stage probabilities, so that when you're looking at your pipeline by probability, it will actually give you a realistic number. So again, it's taking the data that we're gleaning from the BI platform, from HD Forecast, and impacting how we're leveraging Salesforce to do that. Instead of, we all know where those numbers come from. So, but yeah, so we're actually using our data to determine what those probability percentages are. And again, over time, they're getting more and more accurate. So the more data we get in here, the more accurate those are, the better reliability we have in our forecast method, which then allows us, again, to work backwards to decide how much drive we need at the top of the funnel to get out what we need, and the timing of that. All right, what levers do we need to pull when? Then the other piece, like I said, was the automation of those forecasts. I think we estimated just net savings on the time spent on forecasts to be about $200,000 a year. So you take the amount of time spent by each rep, the amount of time spent by our admin per week, and the amount of time spent by sales leadership trying to interpret what they were presented. So all of that information at their fingertips was a net gain that was fairly significant.
I'm actually curious. I don't know if you guys have gotten there yet. I mean, I hear your stories, and it suggests to me that by being really smart with the seat list, you're maybe kind of compressing time, getting to the right, buyer sooner, and then with HD Forecast, you're able to kind of track and act on an opportunity, understand the risk factors. Have you seen a compression in your sales cycle, or have you been able to track like a lead from the beginning then all the way through using both products?
Yeah. Again, I hesitate to say one way or the other simply because, again, as data continues to come in, it changes over time. Certainly from when we first implemented the tools, we've seen some correlation. They were introduced at different times. So drawing a direct line of this gave us that is a little hard to tell. And as Kevin has said, it took us a good, I'd say probably 4 months to design and implement C9. So by the time we did that, by the time then you get through the 6-month barrier that we created, we've only had actionable pieces coming out of C9 for about 3 months now. All right. So we're starting to see the benefits of that. We're starting to see sales leadership being able to speed things up because they can now go back in and say, yes, this worked, or no, this didn't. So we tried this at the start of the quarter. We had these results by the end of the quarter. How did that compare to the last quarter when we weren't doing that? And we're finally to the point where now we're starting to see those types of relationships.
I understand it's a journey.
Yeah. And
Well, the only thing I add to that is he's exactly right. Everything he said is right on. But just literally like 4 weeks ago, I was in a meeting with the VP of Sales and the directors and stuff, and that was one of the comments is our sales cycle is actually a little bit longer than we thought it was, and it was because of these tools. That do we have it pinpointed down to the number? No, but we can tell now. Okay, we're getting closer. So we've seen the change already. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and do we have enough time to go back one slide?
Or if there's any other questions, we kind of took
Yeah. So the only thing I wanted to really cover here, down below, is another widget that we have in the Active Insights piece. And I'll briefly touch on this. So when I talk about predictability, what we're looking at here is new opportunities created by week. So the line is the number of opportunities. The columns are actually the amount of revenue represented by those opportunities. Right? We have another one that's identical to this that is closed won opportunities. And when we go through and we start analyzing the information from the new opportunities to when we look at them in the closed state, the higher the ASP is on this slide, so the closer that line and bar are together, the more predictable our revenue is, the less fluidity you get from price variability, product change, things like that. And so what we're able to tell is, did the rep spend enough time at the start of the opportunity to really get to understand the problem and the solution that was going to be in place? Or did they just put a placeholder in here? If they put a placeholder in here, our information is spotty at best. And the reliability and predictability that we gain from that is all over the place. So again, this has been a tool that we've used to go back to the sales teams and say, look, if you provide us better information up front, I can tell you whether or not enough deals to hit your targets by the end of the quarter. So in terms of user adoption, in terms of change management, this has been absolutely crucial to getting people on board.
Awesome. And I think we're getting some weird. Yeah. I don't think we have any questions, right? I think everything changed on the Mac. I don't know why. Yeah, everything looks different. Okay. Well, huge thanks to Cradle Point. We appreciate it.